Hello guys, good morning everyone. So it's almost 10 minutes since 9. So I think we should start with session. So this is Advait and we'll be continuing what we were doing yesterday. So if your friends have not yet joined, do ping them or call them if they're still sleeping or And until they join, let's do one thing. Let's just go over what we did yesterday as a revision. So until then, we can even expect other people to join, and you can even start your Android Studio, so it will initialize by them. Okay. Do let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, your screen is visible. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks. So yeah, let's just go over what we did yesterday first. Let's start with our main activity, or rather our XML file, that is our UI. So the first thing that we did was get familiar with uh, constraint layout for designing the UI. We inserted a couple of widgets. This is a calendar view, this is a text view, and this is a floating action button. And we set some margins and constraints for them. And these constraints were relative, as in for the calendar, it is relative to the edges of the screen, to the top left and right. And because left and right are equal on both sides, this calendar, it's there in the center. And then we have this text view, which is constrained at the top to this calendar, which is why it falls below this. And similarly for left and right. And then we have this floating action button, which is constrained to the right edge and the bottom edge. And floating action button will stay in this place no matter what happens in this screen. Even if you scroll below by a lot, this button is going to hold its place. So this is our main screen. Then what we did was create another activity. That was our new event activity that should launch when this plus button is clicked. So I'll again give an overview of what activities are. So activities are basically pages in your screen. I'll show it with an example as well if you want. Yeah, okay. It's in my history. Yeah, cool. So this is a fair example of an activity. So it's basically, as I said, like a screen, and you can navigate between different activities based on some user interaction. So if you click on this button, you could go to the second activity and so on, and you can even return to the previous activity. So these are different pages that are there, and we have inserted a new page that is our new event activity, and it will launch when this plus button is clicked. And let's go over how that activity is launched. So I'll go over to the code for main activity, and this is the part that handles launching that activity. So what we did here is use the function find view by id, which is similar to get element by id in JavaScript. And so you just have to mention the id of the floating action button, and you will get that object in the add event button. And then we need to add an event listener. Again, if you've used JavaScript, you would be familiar with this. So we just did a set on click listener, and this code, it comes up on its own. But what we do have to write is the content for this function, and this is the function that will get executed when the user clicks on that button. So in this function, what we have done is we have used the inbuilt functions start activity. So this is what is responsible for starting a new activity, and we need to pass an intent to it, as in what is our intent, and that is to go to this activity, new event activity, and this is our context. That is the current activity, main activity dot this. So this will start our new activity. So let's see what we have over there. So this is our UI that we designed yesterday, and so we inserted an edit text for the title. We did it for a date and time, and we also inserted these vector assets. So let me just go over again what vector assets are in case you've forgotten. So we did that by right clicking on drawable or anywhere really. You can do it from file as well. Click on new, and vector assets. So you don't actually have to follow. I'm just going over what we did yesterday. So don't worry if you think it's fast. And vector assets are basically icons that do not lose their resolution however large you scale them. So they are actually XML files, and if you open our XML file, okay, I'll show you that file. So you can click on this clip art and a lot of icons will show up here. You can choose them and it generates an XML file. So this is our calendar icon. So you'll see that in this XML file, there is no actual image, it's just a description of how that path is going to be. And this is why it's called a vector, because it does not lose its resolution. You can, scale it however large you want it to be. And that is similar for our time icon. So after we introduced these resources, we put an image button. Sorry, not this activity. It was this one. Yeah. We inserted an image button here. So image button, as I said, is a mixture of an image and a button. So you set some icon to it, and when you click on it, you can, do some, like you can do whatever you want when you click on it. So we also constrained it. So you can see the constraints actually. It looks nice here. Let me zoom in more. Yeah, so this is our icon. So it has been constrained to the top. You can see this top blue line to the top of this date field and to the bottom, which is why it gets centered vertically to begin with. And then the right constraint has been added to this with 8 dp of space. So it is like it gets aligned properly. And then we did it similarly for time. So similar constraints again, one from the top, one from the bottom, and one to the right. So this is how we designed our UI yesterday for this. And the second thing we did is set up a connection between our date picker and this icon. So I'll go over the date picker once again. Okay, let's go to new event activity first. Yeah, okay, I forgot this. We also did a set title new event that would appear on that page. And we also did a change in Android manifest.xml. If you remember, we added this Android parent activity name so that we get that little back button over there. Okay. Going back to new event activity. Cool. So this is our image button. This is a similar on-click, exactly the same as our floating action button. So we did a find view by ID. We passed on the ID of the date picker icon and assigned it to this variable image button show date picker. And again, exactly the same, did a set on click listener. And in this on click, we launch our date picker. So I'll go over this code again once, but this is where our custom date picker is. So if you remember, we had created a class yesterday from file new Java class and extended this dialog fragment and wrote this code. And these are the different parameters that we need to pass to this dialog box so that it pops. I think this part should be clear. It is just getting the calendar instance from Java. That is the built-in calendar of Java, not Android Studio. And so you can do this in a proper Java, simple Java code as well. So you do a get instance and then you do calendar.get and calendar.day of month, and it will return what date it is today. Okay. So this is, we do this so that so it's like it's like a preset, right? So otherwise you default to 1st January 1970. And if you do this, you will be defaulting to today's date. And then we have context and on date set listener. So context, as I said earlier, is a base for your dialog box. So dialog box is not a full-blown activity, right? It's just a small dialog box basically, and it appears on top of something. So it actually needs to appear on top of something. It cannot appear on its own, and that base we call context in Android. And we can get the context by just giving a call to this function get activity. And again, we have our on date set listener. So again, if you remember yesterday in our new event activity, we had implemented this interface. So if you know what an interface is, you'll know what we did yesterday exactly, that after implementing this, we had to override the function that was defined in on date set listener. So even if you don't know OOP, it's fine if you just remember this part, that whenever you implement any interface, there are functions that are defined in this interface but there is no body in those functions. It is just defined. Just the name and parameters are given. So whenever you implement an interface, you mandatorily need to give some body and define that function, exactly what needs to be happening. So that is what we did. This is the function that got generated, that is defined in onDateSetListener, and we wrote some content for it. And as I've mentioned here, this is a callback function, as in this gets called when the date is set. So what do you mean by that? When we go to custom date picker and do this, we pass our onDateSetListener, get our context again, and just typecast it into this onDateSetListener, and we pass this variable. So this is actually the function. You can think of this as the function or an instance. So our date picker dialog will actually give a call to this function whenever a date is selected, whenever we click on OK in that dialog box. So this is what happens because of that interface. And the content is this again. So we formatted the date, right? So day of month / month +1, because index starts from 0, again /year. So just proper formatting. And again, similarly, did a find view by ID, get the edit text for the date, and did a set text. So the set text function will set whatever string you pass to it to that view. And this is a very general function. It's used extensively. We'll be using it more today. And yeah, I talked about this earlier, that I said I'll cover it up later. Save the date to global variables so that we can use it later. So why do we need to use it later? Is because we want to store these, store this data into the database. And after this function is done executing, we won't have access to these dates, right? So which is why we need to store them in a little more, a little less ephemeral storage, let's say. So that would be this these global variables. So again, if you know OOP or classes, you know what these are. Even if you don't, I'll just summarize it as you can access them from anywhere. These are members of your class. You can just do this.day, this.day, this.month, and this.year. And from any function, you'll be able to access these variables. Okay, I think that should cover it up as revision. Okay, by now, if you have any doubts, do ask me. We'll cover them up before I begin with today's content. Okay, Sakshi is saying an error and a problem. How can I resolve it? Okay, Sakshi, can you be a little more specific? You can unmute yourself. Sakshi, are you there? Okay, yeah. If you're still getting that error, it's fine if you unmute yourself and ask. Yeah, that will be easier. What kind of an error, actually? I mean,
Okay, I will be seeing that. Advait, you can continue with the session.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue. Okay, by the way, guys, one thing I forgot to show you yesterday, and that was how to check your logcat in Android Studio. So yesterday someone had posted it out, and that's when I realized that I didn't show you this. So I'm going to cover what happens when your app crashes and how to debug it first before we go forward. So let's just introduce an error first of all. So you don't have to follow this. It's fine if you just look at my screen. So I'm going to main activity right now, and this is my on-click function for our floating action button that will open the new activity. And before that activity starts, I'm just going to write some code over here that is going to give me an error. So I'll create an array list that. So if you know what an array list is in Java, well and good. If you don't, it is just like arrays, but it holds objects. So yeah, that is it basically. And so I've created a new array list, but there are no elements inside it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to access the first element that is at index 0, but it does not have any elements, which is why it is going to give me an error. So I'll run this application and let's see what happens. Yep, so this is my floating action button, and when I click on this, you can see that my app crashes, and you can do it many times. You'll see that it keeps stopping. So now, from where do we debug this error, and from where do we find this out, like what happened? So in this menu bar at the bottom, you have this button called logcat. So you click on it, and you'll see that numerous logs are listed over here. You'll have different options. So these are all unnecessary kind of logs. I mean, you don't really need to look at them, but what you do need to look at are the errors. And this is the error that we have. So if you want to filter out, you can just type in error here, and you can even search, and whatever you see in red is the error. So it says fatal exception. This is the process ID, and it says what kind of an exception we have. So it says index out of bounds, size is 0 and index is 0. Cool. So I got to know what happened. And then here it gives me which line it is coming from. So if I click on this, it will take me to this line, and it will tell me that, okay, here is the error on line number 30, array list.get 0, index out of bounds. So this is how you can get to know errors in your code and fix them. And this is how you can use your logcat. So one more thing I'll tell you here is you can even how to print to this console, right? So we'll remove this line for now. Okay. I'll comment this out. And here I'll type another line. I'll comment this out as well. Actually, I don't need that. Okay. So I'm going to type log.d and just press enter. So this is your function actually for debugging whatever you want to print to the console. You need to pass two parameters to it. First is the tag. So I'm just going to type ABC, like you can type anything as your tag, and you can print whatever you want here, random message, and I'll run this app again. So this D here stands for debug. You can see that there are multiple things here. So D stands for debug. So when I click on plus, the activity launches now because I removed this. But what does happen is you get this line here, this line. It says D/ABC. D means debug because we did a log.d, and this is your tag, and this is what you wanted to print. So, tags are here so that you can search them, because most of the times you're not going to be, you're actually going to be printing the content of variables, right? You're not going to be passing strings like this, and you won't be able to search them. So the purpose of this tag is to just type in ABC, and you can get to this, you can filter it out from all this mess. So yes, so that is logging. I hope that is clear. Let me know if you have any doubts. Okay, I guess no doubts. So I'll remove this part. We don't need it. And I think we can go forward now. So yeah, I just went over the custom date picker that we implemented yesterday. Let's just see the functioning once so that we're all on the same page. Okay, so this is our application. This is our calendar. This is our heading. Here we are going to insert a list and a floating action button. Click plus on it. This activity shows up. and then you can enter your title here. You can insert your date here. You can click on this date picker icon and choose a date, and when you click on OK, we are going to format it properly with slashes and set text onto this edit text. So now this exact same thing we are going to do for time. So there's a similar time picker, built-in time picker as well. We just need to do it, and it's exactly the same as a custom date picker. So now you can go to this repository. I'll send a link below. Yep. So open this repository in a new tab and navigate to app, src, main, and this file, Java example test calendar. And you'll see that there are multiple Java files over here. So right now we are done with our main activity, our add event activity. I mean, we'll be adding code into this, but we have those files, and we also have our custom date picker. So we are now going to do exactly the same for our custom time picker. Cool. So the first thing that you have to do right now is to go back to Android Studio and create a class that is named custom time picker. So if you remember how we did it yesterday, just click on File, New, and Java class. Now again, I'll mention this: if you are on an XML file right now, I mean one of these layout files, and you click on File, New, this Java class option isn't going to be available for you. So if that is the case, just click on any Java file and then click on New Java class. Then just type in custom time picker, double click on class, and you'll have this class. And the next thing is you have to copy paste this extends dialog fragment from GitHub so that we will subclass this dialog fragment. Now you need to import it. Again, if you've forgotten that, just press your Alt key, the one to the left of the spacebar, and do Alt Enter and import androidx.fragment.app. Cool. So now that this is done, we have to override the function on create dialog. So you can just copy paste this entire function right from line number 15 to line number 32. And import everything. So again, this is actually exactly the same as our date picker. You'll see that the format is exactly the same. The only differences are that instead of getting the current date, we are getting the current time. If you remember, we did the month, I mean day of month and year. Instead of that, we are doing hour of day and minute. So we're getting the current time from the Java's built-in calendar, and again we're getting the context, and we are setting this on time set listener. So that was on date set listener. This is on time set listener, and we are going to have to implement this again in our new event activity. Okay, so I hope you've copied this thing by now. If you have, let's go over to new event activity, and you'll see that you have already implemented date picker dialog.on date set listener. Just give a comma and type in time picker dialog dot on time set listener. So it will come up in autocomplete, and after that you'll notice that Android Studio is showing a warning or an error. So that is because after implementing this interface, you must override these functions. So for this date set listener, we override this function on date set. So for this one, it is going to be on time set. So just press Alt Enter, and the first option would be to implement methods. Just press Enter and click on OK. Cool. So I'm going to wait for a minute here until everyone follows up. Do ask me if you have any questions.
Advait,
Hmm.
um, have we declared any element by the ID month underscore name?
I
Because
don't think so. That's what I was just checking actually.
yeah, because Sakshi is facing the issue and
Sakshi, did you try clicking on refresh? It says to try to refresh the layout. Yes, okay. I'll assume it didn't solve the problem. Does your application run, by the way? Like, is it an error that we faced yesterday? Like, it wasn't showing on the UI, but it was still running. Okay, cool. So, cool. So I'll show you one way that might solve this problem, and that is to invalidate caches and restart. So invalidate caches basically sometimes Android Studio messes up some things, and okay, it worked for Hello World. Okay, so yeah, sometimes Android Studio messes up some things, and what we just need to do is basically force a restart, clearing all of its caches, and that sometimes solves the problems like these where you don't exactly know what is happening. And I mean, you don't think there's an error, but Android Studio is still showing something. So click on File and click on Invalidate Caches / Restart, and click on Invalidate and Restart. So it would take a minute or two, but your Android Studio will start up again, and that might solve the problem. Let me know what happens. Cool. Okay. So I believe everyone has copied and implemented this interface by now. So right now we have a similar function to on date set, that is on time set, and you'll see that even the parameters are similar. You have this view, instead of year, month, and day, you have hour of day and minute. Cool. So now that we have implemented this, what we need to do is add an on-click listener. So just like we did for this date picker, we need to do it for our time picker. So head over to GitHub again, and in test calendar, go to your add event activity.java file. So yesterday we copied until here. That is our show date picker. Now copy line number 45 to 54 from this add event activity.java. So this save button will come to save button later. So you can just copy this much right now and paste it below in this on click. Yeah, just make sure your IDs are correct. So click on attribute, copy your ID from here and paste it here. Yeah. So now that your IDs are done, we're doing exactly the same as we did for date picker. We are creating an object for our custom time picker, and we're calling custom time picker.show, and this is a built-in function, get support fragment manager. So I'll go over fragments later if you need, but this is a fragment manager which handles loading fragments and dialog boxes. So we need to pass it an instance and a tag. So this can be any random tag. I did pick date here. I'm doing pick time here. So this is going to launch that activity, the dialog box. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I missed this line, I think, in my custom time picker. So this is just creating a new instance similar to the date picker. Pass the context on time set listener, hour, minute, and one more parameter that is 24-hour view false. So you can set it to true if you want. That clock will adjust accordingly, and we return a new instance. So now if you're done copying, you can run your app. And when you click on plus, you'll see that when you click here, this time picker pops up. So you can set any time, 6:45, for example, 6:45 p.m. and click on OK. Now we have clicked on OK, but that text did not show up here because we haven't actually filled in our on time set function. So that is empty. So go back to new event activity and you'll see that this on time set is empty. This function is getting called, but nothing is happening. So go back to GitHub now, and yeah, in your add event activity, you will have this on time set. So just copy all the contents of on time set and paste them in your function. Again, make sure that your IDs are correct. I'm getting an error on this line, that is for the edit text, and that ID is of our time, this edit text view. So that is where we are going to set our text for the time. So just copy your ID from here and paste it here. Again, so we are formatting our time properly. So this is you get the hour of day and minute. So for the string time is just hour of day colon minute. Okay. And we are doing a find view by ID and setting text, and we are passing this time string. Also, we are similar to this, we are saving these variables to a global variable, that is hour and minute. So just access them by this.hour and this.minute, and set them so that we can access them later when we insert them into the database. Okay. So let's run our app again. Yeah. And now, okay, 9:41 p.m. Sure. Click on OK. You'll see that this time is, it shows up here. Now this is a default time. It will show up in 24-hour format for this hour of day. And if you want to format it properly, feel free to do so. So you can like subtract. If this hour of day is greater than 12, you can subtract 12 and add PM to it, and so on. You can do whatever formatting you want. What we just need to make sure of is this time. This string should be proper, so that it can be set to this time view edit text. Okay, cool. So this is it for this screen. I'll wait for you guys if you haven't caught up with me or if you have any questions. Okay, meanwhile, Sakshi, did that solve your issue? Invalidating caches and restart? Process is still going on. Okay, sure. Cool. Okay, guys, do let me know if you've copied. If you've reached until this point, just send a yes in the chat box. That would be good. Okay. Cool. That is nice. Cool. Great. Okay. So yeah, let's move forward then. So yeah, now that we have done this, what we need to do is insert our new event in a database. So now, there are different kinds of databases. You have, you must have heard of SQL and NoSQL databases. SQL could be MySQL, PostgreSQL, and so on. But what Android supports primarily is an SQL database that is called SQLite. So it is a local database, as in all the data is going to be stored on your phone and not anywhere in cloud. So if you do want to use cloud, there are services like Firebase and so on, which we are going to cover in tomorrow's session again. So right now we will be going forward with SQLite, which is a local database. So even if you don't know SQL, it is fine. You don't need to know a lot of SQL queries for what we're going to do today. And even if you do, so because SQLite actually has one more layer over it called room that sometimes simplifies when you have a large app, because when you have a very big app, you cannot just write your SQL queries one by one, right? It's a huge app and that takes a lot of time. So room is something like an abstraction layer that sits on top of this SQLite database, but that is useful only if you have a very big application. If it's a small app, it's more of a hindrance, or uh, you know like eating like this basically. Yeah. Cool. So to insert it in our database, first we are going to need a save button in our UI. So open your new event XML file and we are going to insert a button here. So this button will be available in common. If it is not, you can just click on buttons or you can search it here. So drag and drop this button. And after it appears, again, two things that we need to do. First is to set a proper ID. So I'm going to type new event save button. Okay, press enter and press on refactor. And the second thing that you need to do is set the constraints. So I'm going to constrain it to the left first and then to the right as well. And because both values are equal, 0 and 0, it it gets centered exactly. And then set a top constraint. So you click on this button, this circle here, and you can constrain it to either of these views, the date or time. I'm going to do it to date, and you'll see that it is 0. That spacing. So just increase that spacing. I'm going to type 48 here so that it looks a little better. So this is your button, and you need to replace this text to save, right? So in the attributes, you'll see that there's this text field, text attribute. So just replace that to save. Cool. Now, so this is all what we need for the button. But if you want to play around with the attributes, feel free to do so. You can change the layout width if you want. You can make it match constraint. You'll see that the button looks this much. If you want to make it a little bit better looking, you can adjust the constraints. 16 and 16 on both sides, for example, and this way your match constraint will, it will not hit the edges. Okay, so yeah, feel free to do whatever you want. I'm going to keep it to wrap content. You have different attributes as well. You can insert a background to this, different background color, or you can change the text style, font, and so on, whatever. Yeah. So hope you followed until this point. And if you have, let's go over to our new event activities Java page. And just like we did an on-click listener for these two buttons, our image buttons, we are going to do one more on-click listener for our save button. Cool. So head over to GitHub now. And in this file, add event activity.java, in your onCreate function, you'll see this part. So that would be line number 56 to 66. So just copy that part and paste it below our show time pickers set on click listener. So you'll get a couple of imports. So just press Alt Enter and import them. And yeah. Okay, so again, this is exactly the same. We do a find view by ID. We write our ID here. Make sure your ID is correct for the button. And you set an on-click listener. And again, this is the on-click function that will get executed. So what I'm doing here is two things. So first is save our entered info in the local SQLite database. Now this is showing me an error because this function actually does not exist. I'll have to write it. And the second thing is close this activity and return to the previous page. So you can close an activity by clicking on back on your phone, but programmatically, if you want to close it, there is this built-in function called finish. So if you call that activity will close. Okay. So, okay, yeah. Before we go this, let me show you actually one more thing. I haven't covered toast here. So just comment out this function so that it doesn't give you any error. And you can type in toast here. Just type toast you'll get two autocomplete suggestions. One is this widget and one is this thing that is named create a new toast. So just press on, just hover on create a new toast and press enter, and it will fill this up. So if you, I'll show you what a toast is. Just enter any text here and then I'll go over the code. So I'll just type in random text, or okay, better yet, save button clicked. Yeah, so when I click on the save button, so you'll see this small message here that says uh, save button clicked. So you must have seen this messages in different applications. So that is called a toast message, and you can you can send a toast message using just this one line. So there's this toast class, and there's the static function named make text, and you have to pass in the context. So again, why do you have to pass this context is because the toast is a very small UI element that cannot show up on its own. It must be attached to some base, and that base is the activity from which it is called. So we do new event activity dot this, that is the context, and the text save button clicked. And we have to pass in one more parameter, that is for how much time you want to show that toast. So you have, I believe you have two parameters, length underscore short and length underscore long. So you can either of them would work fine, and then just do a dot show. So most of this template would appear if you if you clicked on create a new toast. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys what a toast is and how we call it. So if you want, you can leave this line here. I'm going to comment it out, and I'm going to uncomment this save event to SQLite function. So I'll again wait for a minute. Okay, cool. So this is our, on GitHub. Just head over to GitHub right now, and in the same file, add event activity.java, you have this save event to SQLite function. So it is fine if you copy that function entirely. I'll explain what the code does, and just paste it in the class below this time set. So just make sure you're pasting it properly, right? Okay, don't paste this one function in another function and so on. So below this time set, or if you want, over here there are these small minus buttons. So if you want to avoid the clutter, just click on these minus buttons, and that will collapse different functions that you don't want to mess up your view. So you can paste your function here, save event to SQLite, and again, just whatever is red, just click on them and press enter, and it will import. Yeah, it's done for me. Okay, so what are we doing here basically? So our save event to SQLite is supposed to save all this data that we entered, that is our title, first thing, our date, and our time. Okay, so date and time, if you remember, we had gotten it via these functions, and we had set them to some global variables over here. So that is, these are the globals variable that we're now going to access while inserting it into the database. So yeah, so the first thing is we actually have to get the title of our event, right? So to get this, we do again a similar find view by ID and pass in the ID of our edit text. So this edit text is this one, this title. Its ID is new event title edit text. That is what we reference here. And after we do this find view by ID, we can get text using this function, our event title box dot get text. And because it is in a different format, different object named editable, you just have to type in dot to string, and it will get converted to a string. So this result, you can store it in a string. So whenever you type in anything and click on the save button, you'll see that you'll get that text in a string named event title. Done, thanks. Okay, great. cool. So now that we got the string, actually, before doing the rest of this, let's just print this log.d. Event title, and I'm going to print my event title string here. And I'm going to do an alt enter. So if you want, you can run this. If you don't want to, you can just look at what I'm doing. And I'm going to comment the rest of the code, because I just want to see what this event title is and if I'm getting it correctly. So yeah, enter whatever title you want. Let's say Christmas. And when I click on save, this function is going to get called. And log.d, if you remember, it appears in the logcat. So this is a debug. I've selected debug. You can see this thing. And this is our line. And it shows Christmas because it got that string from our event title box. So yeah, this is what happens. Cool. I'm going to delete this line now and then comment these. Okay, now to the database part. So creating a database in Android is really simple. So as I mentioned earlier, it is an SQL database which runs locally. So if you uninstall your application or you go into app settings and clear your app data, all this data is going to be erased, but it works really well for local storage. And for cloud storage, we'll be covering up Firebase later on. So yeah, so this is the built-in function open or create database that you use to get a connection or establish a connection to the database. So now, if you look at the name open or create, I think it should be self-explanatory because I'm going to call this line every time. So when the first time this line, when this line executes for the first time, it is going to create this database which is named main. You can name it whatever you want. And the second time it does, it is not going to create the database, but because it actually already exists. So it is just going to open it or establish a connection. And then you have one more variable, that is the mode private. So I think this refers to whether this database should be accessible from other apps and so on. So I think there must be another tag named mode public, but let's just keep it private. And factory is something you don't have to look at right now. You can just pass in null. So that will create the database for you and set up an extension, establish a connection, and you have this database variable. Now, since this is an SQL database, you can execute SQL queries directly. So if you look at line number 117, you'll see that there's this function named exec SQL, that stands for execute SQL, and you can pass in any query that you want. So this is the query that I'm passing. It is a string, and it says create table if not exists events. So this is the events table that I'm going to create if it does not exist. Again, similar logic here. If it already exists, it is not going to run. It's not going to do anything. And this is the schema of my database. So these are the different columns that I have: title, day, month, year, hour, and minute. The title is going to be varchar, which means string in SQL, and all these are integers. So even if you don't know SQL, it is fine. That this query should be self-explanatory. Create table. This is the name, and as I mentioned, this is the data type, and this is the column name. So these are different columns that I have. If you know SQL, you must have understood the statement. And after this is done, we are going to insert our values in this table. So again, now you must be wondering, if we can just execute SQL queries directly, why did I not write an SQL query for insertion, like insert into table values and so on? You can write title and get this string and then write month, because it actually becomes a very long string, to be honest. So Android has this better option of doing it via content values. So content values is just like a key value pair basically. You initialize an object, content values equal to new content values, and then you just put your data inside in a key value pair. So title is my event title string, this one. Day is my global variable, this dot day, if you remember this one, and so on. I've done for month, year, hour, and minute. And after this is done, database has a built-in function called insert. So all you need to do is pass in the name of the table. So we created this events table over here. So that is what we're going to pass. This null column hack you can ignore for now, just keep it null. And I just have to pass in this variable, that is the values. So it's totally fine if you want to run an SQL query instead. You can write a string insert into table values and so on and so on. And run this function again, database.execute SQL, and pass in that query. So that is going to run fine, no issues. So this is how you save your event to SQLite. So I'm just going to run my application and enter an event. Yeah, so the title is going to be Android workshop. Date is, okay, let's say today, and time is 9 a.m. Okay, now this UI part actually it's fine. I mean, it just shows 90. It should be 900, but it shows 0 because this is just an integer, and 00 would become 0. So if you want, you can fix that in your application. So that would be in this new event activity in this time set. So as I mentioned, if you want, you can format it properly, and that would fix it. Cool. So you can click on the save button now. So our code runs, this function gets executed, and then this finish gets executed as well, and your activity is exited. Now we will, I know that this gets inserted in the database, but there's no way actually to see what is inside the database. For that, we are going to have to write some code to fetch events from the database, whatever we have saved. So cool, let's do that right now. I'll wait for you guys if you have any questions for me.
Till then, I have posted one question on Slido.com. It will help you to clear your understanding. So visit Slido.com on your another tab, then type the code 44120 and answer that question. Let's see how many of you can get the answer correct.
Okay. Okay. Vinit says he has an error for private word save and to escalate. Can you tell me what error you're getting? You can unmute yourself. That is fine.
Hello.
Hello? Yeah, Vinit.
Hello.
Yeah, Vinit, I can hear you.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
I got an error for that line. Or error is stating that interface or name expected.
Sorry, I wasn't able to catch that. Could you please repeat?
Hello.
Yeah.
Error is saying like class interface or enum is expected at that line.
Class interface or enum is expected. Okay. Do you mind presenting your screen or sending screenshots on the group?
Okay. Let me.
Yeah. Include a screenshot of the error and also screenshot of your function, like at what line you're getting it. I mean, a screenshot of your code. I mean,
I think the error is due to it's, the brackets. You have an extra bracket in your code.
Achha, you posted the
So
screenshots. Okay.
no. I just
Achha.
searched the error and
Okay. Just paste screenshots of your code and we'll find out where an extra bracket is coming from.
Right. Till then, those who have not voted on the poll that is on the slido.com, please vote.
Okay. So most of you are correct in that it is hosted locally and can be both. Okay, so if you want to interact with a database from Android, you can interact with both databases. That is something that is stored locally or something that is stored in cloud. But that does not mean that SQLite is stored on cloud. Sure, you can have SQL-based databases in cloud, such as Amazon's AWS's or Google's GCP, Google Cloud Platform. They offer some solutions like RDS, for example. So, I mean, I don't expect you to know this, but it is an SQL-based database that is hosted in the cloud. But SQLite is different. SQLite is also an SQL-based database, but it is, like it is local. I mean, it stores all data on your phone. Okay, Vinit. So I can see that there is in your code on line 100, there's a curly bracket that closes. So that might be causing an issue. If that curly bracket is your the closing bracket of your class, just make sure that bracket is after you paste your function. So your function should be inside the class but outside of any functions. So that should sort it out. Okay, sure. Let me know what happens. I'll move forward until then. Okay, so we have inserted our event to SQLite. Now what we need to do is fetch those events. Now to fetch those events, we could have multiple events stored, and we don't want to just fetch one event, right? What I'm also going to cover in this session is recycler views. So what are recycler views basically? I'll just Google once to show you what it is. Okay, yeah, this is fine. So in any application, when you want to display lists, for example, this is an email application and there are a lot of emails. So if you want to do this manually, what you'll have to do is create one text box here, name it text box 1. This will be text box 2, this will be text box 3, and so on. But that is not how you design an application, right? There can be hundreds and thousands of email, and you cannot have 1,000 different widgets, each addressed manually. So this is where recycler view actually comes in. So what you'll notice here is that all of these emails that are listed, they all have the same UI. The same exact layout, and that is because this layout was actually designed only once, and they just kept placeholder text views over here. And however, and whatever is the number of your emails, this UI layout just gets replicated those many times. So if you have 10 emails and 10 data points, this layout is going to be replicated 10 times. So this is what a recycler view is, and that is what we are going to do right now. So I hope we are clear with the concept. So cool. Let's insert a recycler view widget first. So head over to your activity main. I'm just going to rename this first to events. Yeah. And what I'm going to do right now is in your palette, you're going to find this recycler view here. If it is not visible, just type in the search box and drag and drop this. Okay. Now you might think that there's nothing visible on the screen, but it actually is. And let me show you. Sorry. Cool. So you'll see that there is this button, this circular button at the top, at the right, at the left, and at the bottom. So this UI is actually inserted. It's actually there in the layout, but it is taking up the entire screen, which is why it is, I mean, you might feel that it is not visible. And you'll see this item 0 to 9 over here, which is a part of that recycler view. So now we need to give it proper positioning first. So first thing that you should do is change the layout width and height. So it is match parent right now. Just click on wrap content for now. And even for the height, just click on wrap content. Cool. So you'll see this UI, I mean, this widget is here. Just take it to the bottom, and we can now set proper constraints to it, and that will, I mean, that will give it a good look. So again, the first thing is set an ID. So I'm going to type in events recycler view, and now we have to set constraints. So do it similarly. Give a top constraint to the events. I'm going to give 16 dp of margin, and give a left constraint and give a right constraint. Now we'll see that this is at the center, but I don't want it at the center. I mean, I want it aligned to the left side. So give good margins here as well, 16 on the left and 16 on the right. And then you can actually go ahead and change the height and width again. So height is fine, wrap content, because height is something that, I mean, if you have 10 elements, your height should be wrapping those 10 elements. It shouldn't be less, it shouldn't be more. It should be exactly how many elements there are. But for the width, instead of wrap content, it is fine if you do match constraint, and you'll see that it is inserted properly now. And this is going to look much better. So this is our recycler view. It is constrained properly. You don't need to do anything else for this part now. What we do need to do right now. So, okay. In the recycler view, you will see that it just says item 0, item 2, item 3, and we haven't actually designed our layout yet, right? Because this is just like a parent view kind of thing. This is where all your list will be populated, but your actual layout of how the events are going to be shown must be designed in a separate XML file. So click on file, click on new, and click on this layout resource file. So you'll have a file name here, and you can just type in, okay, I'll just type in event list layout, and you have this root element. It will be constraint layout. Even if it is linear layout, that is fine. We'll change it later on, and just click on OK. So that will create this new XML file, event list layout.xml. So bear in mind that this is not an activity again. So you'll see that all these other layout files are prefixed with the keyword activity, activity underscore main, activity underscore new underscore event. But this one is not for an activity. It is just a standalone XML file that is going to contain our layout that recycler view is supposed to replicate. So now go over to the code part of this thing. And if you have linear layout listed here, it can happen sometimes. So just erase this and type in constraint layout, and you will get this part. That should be fine. Cool. I'll wait another minute or so for you guys to catch up. Let me know if you are facing any errors while following this.
Till then, you can go to the slido.com again, and I have posted one more question. Like as Advait explained, we see recycler views in our applications, like in WhatsApp, in Instagram, in Gmail, for that matter. You can list out the features that you think are the recycler views, so that you can get an understanding of what recycler view exactly is.
Yep. Okay. By the time you answer your questions, let me just address Neha. She's asking, can you please repeat XML file creating part? So sure. So go back to Android Studio, and in the menu bar, click on File and click on New. So it is just like creating any other activity. I mean, it's just the same menu or class or so on. Okay, is there no layout resource file? Okay, that might happen because I'm in an XML. So again, I don't know why Android Studio has this bug. It's been there since ages. But if you're experiencing this, just open any other Java file, click on File, New, and click on Android resource file. Or was it layout resource file then? Just a minute, guys. Okay, yeah. I don't know why these menus are different, but if you don't have that layout resource file option, just right click on layout instead. There will be this resources folder in this left pane and layout folder under that. So just right click on the layout, click on new, and click on this layout resource file. So that will open up this this pop-up box, and just type in any file name. I typed it event list layout, and the root element might be constraint layout or linear layout, and leave everything as default and just click on OK. That will create this file, this event list layout. So you can open that XML. By default, it will open in the design pane. So at the top right, just click on code and it will show you the code. So if you have linear layout listed here, just erase this, like just do it like this and type in constraint layout, and it will show up here, and just press enter. So yeah, so did that clear it for you, Neha? Okay, great. So yeah, just a minute. Cool. Okay, just 6 responses. I'll type in mine as well. Cool. Instagram product cards in e-commerce applications. Great. Contact list, WhatsApp, songs and playlist, message inbox, newsfeed, Instagrams, Instafeeds. Yep, great. Yep, so that is recycler view, and now we have created this XML file. So this is where we are going to create the UI. Now what we have to do here is, and I'll just introduce a text box. So we are just creating UI the normal way. I inserted one text box for the title. I'm just going to name it, keep the text as title, give a proper ID. I'm going to say event list title, and you can format whatever you want. Like first thing to do is give proper constraints to this. So I'm going to give it a left constraint of 16 and the top constraint of 16 again. Sure. You can go to the bottom and you have font options here as well. So I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to change the color to black. So just type in black, select add color /black. And I'm also going to change the text size. So you'll notice that for text size, it is given in SP. So it is the equivalent of DP, but for text. So again, it is independent of the resolution resolution of the phone that app is running on. So I'm going to pick 24. Okay, like whatever, you can keep it whatever you want. So this is the title, and now we have to insert 2 more text views, one for date. So I'm going to write event list date. Okay, and add some constraints. 16 to the left. Oops. Okay. And 8 on the top. And I'm going to write date here. And one more text view that is for the time. So I'll place it here. So I'll constrain it to the left. Left constraint to the right of date, and add a space of 8. Sure. And now the top constraint. So even that I'll be doing to title. with a space of 8. Set the ID, that is event list time, and set my text to time. Cool. So I hope you've completed to this point. I'll wait for a minute for you guys again. Just insert 3 text boxes, title, date, and time. So if you think you're like lagging behind, look at the attributes later on. I mean your font size and so on, but just insert these 3 text boxes right now. Okay.
Till then, there is one more question that is waiting for you at slido.com. It is very basic one, and whenever you face an error in Android Studio related to Android, you might want to take help of this. So please go to slido.com, type the code 4410120 and answer this question.
Cool. So only 5 people have answered.
Guys, do answer these questions because these will help you to clear your understanding. Some of you might get it wrong, might be unsure about what the answer is, but you can guess the answer. We have covered it in the session, and even if you get the answer wrong, Advait is here to explain you what the answer is.
Cool. So I'll just mark the answer now. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people have selected find error. So yeah, there's no such built-in function named find error that will magically find the error for you. But what you can do is print out variables and so on. So Android Studio also has a proper full-on debugging console, but we'll get into that later. For now, you can just like print out your variables and so on using a log.d. So it helps to know what your code is doing, where your code is, I mean, how your control structures are executing and so on. Android is not visible where we can all see files layout. How can I regain it? Okay, sure. So I believe you are seeing this. So there is this project tab at the left. So if that is gone, just click on this project, it will show up here. And again, there is a menu here. So there are different options. So if you click on project, it will show you differently. It will show you the files that you would see in your file explorer. But I mean, if even this is desktop, you can just click on Android and it will open up these files. So there is this project button at the very left. Okay, cool. So that should clear it up for you, Vaibhavi. And I believe you must have created these 3 UI elements by now. So one more change we need to do here is that, you need to check what is the height of this layout, because now that we have created this layout, it actually spans the entire page. You can just click on this constraint layout and you'll see this white border. So it means that the height of this is your entire screen. And if you keep it like this, you're going to have to, scroll it a lot, because this is just going to be empty white space. So what we need to do is click on constraint layout, and there will be these attributes here. So you don't have to give an ID to this. We don't need to reference it. But for the layout height, instead of match parent, you need to click on wrap content. So what match parent does basically is it will match the height to whatever the height of the parent is. The parent in this case is the actual window. So it will expand completely. Instead of that, just click on wrap content, and now you'll see that the border has come down to this small rectangle. So that is wrap content. Now one thing you'll notice that there isn't enough, good spacing between this because we have not added a bottom constraint. So just do that, click on date, go to attributes and create a bottom constraint. So that will constrain it to the bottom edge of this constraint layout, and add a margin of 16 or 8, like whatever suits. I'm going to change this top to 8 as well. Okay, so now you'll see in the blueprint, you can see that the boundaries are properly set, and this does not expand, or this does not cover the entire page. So this is just, this is just how it is. So this is the view, this is the layout that is going to be replicated as you insert or as you fetch new items from the database. Cool, so our UI part is done, I think, for the recycler view. What we need to do now is code the backend for it. So, okay, so open any Java file, click on file, click on new, and create a Java class. So this Java class is going to be our adapter. So an adapter is something that is required by recycler view. Okay, by the way, saying I don't have the project button here. Okay, could you share a screenshot of your view? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I was saying that recycler view has an adapter, and that adapter is actually responsible for getting all the data and linking it to the UI. So if you go back on GitHub, you'll see that there is this events adapter.java file, and we need to create this class first. So go back to Android Studio, and in your new Java class, just type in events adapter and double click on class. So that will create this class. Now this is an empty class, but we have to do this, and we have to extend, that is subclass recycler view.adapter. So you can go to GitHub and copy this line and paste it here. Sorry. So that it extends recycler view.adapter. Import all your files. Cool. Now one thing you'll notice that Android Studio is giving you an error because we don't have that, and we are not extending or overriding these functions because that parent class requires you to do that. So just press Alt Enter, and you will see this pop-up box, select methods to implement, and click on OK. And all these methods will be inserted automatically. So these are the methods for which we need to fill our content. I'll explain what these do. So, okay, cool. So go back to GitHub right now and copy these two things. So you have your events list here, and you have your constructor here. So if you have programmed in C++ or Java and know OP, you might know what a constructor is, and that is it. It is the piece of code that gets executed when you create a new object. So paste these lines over here. Yeah. Okay, so now you'll see there are a couple of errors because actually I forgot to do one thing, that is to create an event class. So if you go to GitHub right now and open this folder, test calendar, you'll see that there is one file named event.java. So just click on it. So this is a very basic class because it just holds details about what is the title of the event, day, month, year, hour, and minute. And why we are doing this is because anytime you want to transfer data here and there about your event, you are going to have to transfer all of this data, right? Title, day, and so on and so on. And you might initialize different arrays for that and so on. But just creating a class that holds this data is going to be efficient. You can just create an object of this class and pass around that object anywhere that you want. So this is why that event class exists. So create that event class first, click on file, go to new and click on Java and just type in event and double click on class, and I'm going to wait for a minute so you guys can follow up. Yeah. So if you have completed, you can continue resolving your import errors here. So one is for array list, just press Alt Enter. So this part would be clear. And if you yeah, I talked about array lists earlier while I was showing you debugging. So array lists are basically just arrays in Java that can hold objects. So this is a template and it shows that this array list is going to contain objects of the type event. So this is the class that we created. That is what it is going to hold. So this is what it is. And if you have reached, make sure to go to GitHub again and copy all the code for our event class. This one. So yeah, copy all the content. I'll tell you what it is. Yep. So we have these global variables, that is title, day, month, year, hour, and minute. And we have a constructor. So whenever you want to create an object of this class, you can just pass in these parameters and it will set it to the global variables. And these are just getter methods. So if you want to access these variables from the object, you can use these get functions. So these are very standard in Java. And I mean, if you know Java, you might be aware of getter and setter methods. So setter methods are there to set data to these variables, and getter methods are there to get data from these variables. So it's just a simple thing. You can see like get title and it will return the title. So this is all for that. So this class should be self-explanatory, and this part is different, minute 10, because I've adjusted that part. If it's a 1-digit minute, then I'm just going to convert it to a string and make it 2 digits. Yeah, so this part should be clear, pretty simple. Now let's go back to adapter, and you'll see that you still have some errors because what we have to do is create one more class inside of this events adapter class, and we have not created that, which is why it is showing us an error. So go to that and press Alt Enter and select create class myViewHolder. So it will create this class here, public class myViewHolder, and yeah, it will show us one more error, that make myViewHolder extend recyclerView.viewHolder, because this class must extend recyclerView's viewHolder. So I'll explain what that is again, but just do Alt Enter and press this. So yeah, now it should clear it up, is that this class is extending recyclerView.viewHolder, but again it is giving you an error because we have not overridden those mandatory functions. So just press Alt Enter and press Enter. So yeah, this is the outline of what we have to do in this adapter. So I'll go over the code on GitHub first. So go back to your events adapter.java. Cool. So we had copied these lines earlier, right? Our events list and this constructor. So this events list, as I said, is actually an array that holds our events. So whenever recycler view replicates its layout, right, it needs to have a list of the data that is going to be binded to those UI layouts. Because if you have 10 events, you need to pass that recycler view data about those 10 events. And this is that variable, this is that array list which will contain data about all our events. And then we have this on create view holder. So this is a built-in thing, layout inflator. So what it is basically doing is it is inflating, as in creating the layout that is our recycler view event layout that we created here. That is our event list layout, sorry. So you can just copy these two lines as well. from this function on create view holder and paste it instead of this return null line. Solve any import errors and make sure your layout ID is correct. You can get it from here. Mine is event list layout, so I'll just type event list layout. So this line actually just creates the view and returns that view. Yep, so that is the first function. The second function is on bind view holder. So firstly, this function would create the view, and the second would bind the view to the data, which means whenever it is replicating those layouts, it needs to link the data for that event to this. So I'll cover this part in some time. What I'll cover first is the third function and this class. Okay, so the third function we have is get item count. So recycler view needs to know how many items there are, right? And by default it says 0, but 0 is not going to work. We need to return how many items we have, and that is going to be the size of our events list global variable. So just type in events list dot size. So that will wait for the third function. And then we have our public class my view holder. So view holder, I mean, that name might make it clear that whatever layout we create, so this class is a holder or a parent class for that layout. So, every time you do find view by ID and so on, it happens inside a view. And for recycler view, that parent view is going to be this my view holder class. So just look at this. So, how we do this, like find view by ID and create a text view variable and so on. So that variable those variables are declared as global variables in my view holder. So just copy this first line, which is declaration of these global variables. Import your text view. Yep. So this is a call to the constructor. Leave it as it is, and copy. Yeah, Vinod.
Advait, can you summarize the recycler view for those who are lagging a bit behind, so that
Yeah, sure.
they get a full understanding of it?
Yep, I'll do that. Let me just cover my view holder.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Yeah, so as I was saying in my view holder, so yeah, leave this constructor call as it is and copy these 3 lines, and I'll explain what they are. Okay, so you remember how we did find view by ID, right, in the view, but at that time we did not call it from any object, right? But this time, because all these views are inside this view holder, and that view is passed to you in this function, your view item view. So this name might be different for you. If it is, just replace it here. So just type in item view dot find view by ID. So this function will run inside of this view, that is our layout that we created, event list layout. And after we do that, we just assign it to these global variables. Okay, cool. So I'll summarize recycler view as Vinod said. So we have this class called events adapter, and that basically handles all operations of the recycler view. And there are 2 to 3 main things that we need to make sure recycler view is doing correctly. First is make sure that it loads the layout properly. So which is why there is this function on create view holder. And in that we just do a layout. This is an inbuilt function, so you don't need to know actually what is happening, but this inflate function is important. Inflate means just load the UI basically in simpler terms. You just have to pass in the name of the layout that we created, and it would create it. Now that the UI is created, the second thing that we need to do is link the UI to the data that we have. So that is what happens in on bind view holder. And this function unit actually runs multiple times. So you'll see that there is a parameter named int position. That position is the position of that element inside the list, or in other terms, index of your array. So if you have 10 elements, this on bind view holder is going to run 10 times. So we have to just link this data to the UI. I'll show you how that is done. The third thing that we need to take care of is get item count. So recycler view needs to know how many items there are in the list. So we just have to return events list dot size, because there are as many items in the list as there are in our data set, that is our events list. And then we have at the bottom this view holder, which holds all these views that we designed. So the parent or the root of this is going to be your view holder, and all these text boxes are going to fall under this sorry, where did it go? Yeah, under this view holder. So yeah, as I said, just to find view by ID and you will get those. Just make sure your IDs are correct. Cool. So now let's move on to on bind view holder, and you'll notice that there is some piece of code here. So just copy the content, the entire content, and paste it in this function. Okay, so you'll notice that the first two lines are get the event at index position from our dataset. Because we have the position, we would know where that data is in our array, right? So we just have to do a dot get and pass in this position, which is like an index, and you will get that event. So this is actually in an object of the class that we created, this event. So you can use any of these functions, and you can get the title and day and so on. Cool. What I'm doing here is now I have access to my holder, that is my view holder, and I'm accessing these global variables that I created in this class. So all I'm doing is holder.titleView.setText. So you might remember this set text function from our new event page where we set our date and time. So I'm just passing this thing, event.getTitle. So I'm getting the title and passing it to title view. I'm getting the date and I'm formatting it properly and I'm setting it to date view. I'm also getting the time, and for the time I've done the small modification here, setting up AM and period. Like if it is, if the time is greater than 12, I'm just subtracting 12 and writing the period as PM. And after that thing is formatted, I'm just setting the time to the time view. So I hope this is clear for you guys. The recycle view might be a little confusing, so if you have any questions, please ask them. No questions for recycle view?
Could you repeat the recycler view again?
Achha, sure, yeah. Can you please again tell the match parent in event list layout? Okay, so I'll show you that as well. Okay, so Vinith, recycler view, as I was saying, there is an adapter. So an adapter is what is going to link your data to your UI. This is the link between the data and the UI. And to code this properly, you need to set a few things right. And first thing is to have a list of all your objects, whatever data that you're going to have to show. So this is your array list. Array list in Java is just an array which holds objects. So it holds objects of the type event, and then we have a constructor. So whenever we create an adapter, we just pass our events list and it gets set to this global variable, that is this dot events list equal to events list. Cool. So yeah, as I was saying, there are three things that need to be done in a recycler view. First is the on create view holder, that is what would happen when the view needs to be created. So this is the layout that we created, right? Events list layout. So we have this inflate function of the layout inflator. So that will actually load the UI that we created. So every time there is a new item that will show up in the list, it will replicate this layout. So that is what is happening in this function. Then in the second function on bind view holder, bind means to link the data to the UI. So this is where actually we are linking whatever data we have to our UI elements that we created in our event list layout, right? We have title, date, and time. So to do that, we have our view holder that I described at the bottom. There are three global variables that are text view, that is the title view, date view, and time view, and those correspond to these three. and I have linked them using this find view by ID. So we used to do find view by ID directly, but for recycler view, we have to do it on these items. So just using the dot operator, you do item view dot find view by ID and type in the ID, and that will link them. So this is your view holder, and then in bind view holder, what it does is you're binding that view holder to the data that you have in your in your array list. So here's your array list, here's your view holder, and you can have like multiple I mean the size of this event list could be anything, right? I mean, you can have one object, you can have 10 objects, you can have 50 objects. So this function is going to run that many times, and at every position it is going to do the exact same thing, whatever we mention, whatever we code up in this function. So we have the position, that is the index, and what we have to do is access the array list at this position, at this index, and link the data to the view holder. So first we access our element, we get our event from events list.get position, and then we set text to our view holders, title view and date view and so on, by event.get title and event.get day, get month, and just, you know, this part is just formatting it properly. You can type in anything you want over here and that will show up in recycler view. So does that clear, Vinith? Does that clear it up? Okay, meanwhile I'll address Sahil. Can you please explain match parent in event list layout? Sure. We have event list layout, and what I was talking about the match parent thing is for the constraint layout. So in the component tree here, just click on constraint layout, and in the declared attributes in this pane, you will see that the width is match parent and height is wrap content. So what match parent means is that it will try to match the width to whatever width its parent has. So what is the parent for this constraint layout? It is your actual window, your screen of the phone. So whatever width it is, it will try to completely match it, which is why you'll see that it is completely like stretched out. You'll see that this outer white rectangle here, it is like completely stretched out to the right because the width matches the parent. And even for the height, by default, it was match parent. So if I do match parent, you'll see that this completely expands and it fills the entire screen. But we don't want that, because if we do that, each item in your recycler view is going to have this much height. Are you getting it? So like your title will be here, your time will be here, your date will be here, and there's just going to be a lot of white space in your recycler view. And you're going to have to keep scrolling until you, like, if you want to access the objects or the elements below. So instead of match parent, we are just going to do wrap content. And if you see that this white rectangle, it just collapsed and adjusted its height according to the content it had. So this wrap content is now similar to our any other text views, right? So our width was wrap content here. It is similar to that. And it would just cover just this part. So our layout would be just this much. So yeah, cool. Sahil, is that fine? Okay, yeah, great. So this is our recycler view. Our events adapter is complete. And now we just have to give a call to this events adapter from our main activity. So just go to GitHub right now, go to test calendar and click on main activity.java. So you'll see that there is a bunch of code here, but you need not worry. So open up main activity. We don't have much here right now. We just have an add event button and we have set an on-click listener on that. So we have it until here, let's say. What you need to do right now is copy these 2 lines of code, that is some global variables in this main activity. So one is an object of recycler view.adapter and one is an array list. So we have just created an empty array list and initialized it here. and we are going to fill data and insert data in this list. Cool. So after this is done, we have this much code, right? So you can copy the rest of the function. So that would be line 50 to line 76. So just copy it directly and paste it inside on create. Okay. Now a couple of things. First thing is, this is the events recycler view. So we are just doing find view by ID and setting our, we just make sure you're giving the proper ID here. So mine is events recycler view, and we need to set this recycler view up, and we have to give it a layout manager. So just clear out any import errors first. Yep. So you'll see this line here, recycler view layout manager equal to new linear layout manager. So this is just something that recycler view needs, because even while managing its UI application, it needs to know in which layout it has to do it. So linear layout is used traditionally by recycler view, and it is very simple. So all you have to do is create an object of this linear layout manager, pass the context, that is this. You can also do main activity dot this if you want, so that it is more consistent. And then our adapter that we declared at the top, you just have to initialize our events adapter. So this is the same class that we created, right? Events adapter. And we had a constructor to which we passed our events list. So that is the list of our events. And then we have our events recycler view. So we have to set these two things to the recycler view, because they have to be linked to the adapter, right? So we have this built-in function named set adapter, where you pass in this adapter, and set layout manager to this set layout manager. So actually, what this exactly does is a little bit more complicated, and to be honest, outside the scope of this workshop. But for now, you can just paste this line as it is, paste these lines as they are. They will just initialize the recycler view. That is all you need to know at this moment. Okay, so now that this is done, we have passed the list to our adapter. We can have a on date change listener. So what we are planning to do in our application right now here is that whenever a user clicks on any date, right, it will, we should know what date that user selects, so that we can fetch data from our database. So this is why we are doing a find view by ID on the calendar view and doing a set on date change listener. So again, this function is going to get executed every time user clicks on any date. So you click on 12, you click on 26, whatever you do, this function is going to get executed, and you are going to get these parameters, that is where the user has clicked. Yep. So this is the function get events from SQLite database that we are going to use to fetch our events. And after that is done, right, we need to, there's this built-in function named adapter.notify dataset change. So it is just like refreshing the UI. We need to tell it that okay, we have updated the events. Now you refresh your recycler view. So that is what it means basically. And now we are going to fetch the events from the database. So this is the last part. I think we should cover it up before 11 o'clock. So just go to GitHub, and you have this last function over here, that is get events from SQLite database. So copy the entire function. Make sure that you leave this last bracket out here, otherwise it will give that enum error again. And just paste this function. So this error will get cleared and solve any import errors that you have. Okay. So if you've pasted, let me just go through the code once. So this is our function to get all events from our SQLite database. And to that, we're passing these parameters day, month, and year, because we're going to filter them from the database. Oops, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so this is the exact same code actually from our insertion. Open or create database, main, mode private, and create table if it does not exist. So I don't think I have to explain this, but I'll just revise that database we are establishing a connection to the local SQLite database, and we are using this execute SQL function, exec SQL, and we are passing in this string query. So that will create a table if it does not already exist in the database. So this part is pretty simple. Now what we have to do is we have to write an SQL query to fetch all the data from the database, and that is what I've done here. So my query is select, if you know SQL, you might be familiar with this. Select star from events where day equal to this and this and this. But if you don't know, let me just explain it in brief. So select star, select is a keyword in SQL that will just select data from the table. This is our table events. Star is a wildcard character, that means it will select everything. And these are our conditions, where. So it will match up these conditions. So when I click on a date, I only want to get events from that date, right? So these are my filters. So where day equal to this day, where month equal to this month, and where year equal to this year. So this is my filter. And this is the function database.raw query. So you can like it is exactly the same as execute SQL, but you can pass this string fetch data query and keep the second argument as null. So this will execute the query on our database and it will return a cursor. So what this cursor is basically it's a pointer. It's kind of a pointer to the different rows that are there. And once you get the cursor, you just have to make sure that it points to the first row. So there is this built-in function called move to first. So there might be different rows in your database, like 10 rows, 20 rows, whatever. If you use this move to first, it will point to the first row. Okay. So now we have to, now that we have our cursor, all our events are stored inside this. All we have to do is insert all those events one by one into our events list array list over here that we created up top. So before adding them, you just have to clear them. Events list.clear. This is a built-in function that would remove all existing elements from this array list. And I just have to check if there are any rows present, because if there are not, like, executing this code, it would just give me an error. So if the cursor is 0, the get count is 0, I'm just returning from this function, like don't proceed. And if that is not the case, if we have any elements inside this cursor, I'm just going to iterate over the rows. So this is a very standard do while function that is used while iterating over the cursor. So for this while condition, you have cursor.move to next. So it will keep going to the next row in that in the whatever results you fetch from your database. And when all the rows are finished, it will just like return null and you will move out of this do while loop. So what is happening inside this do while loop now is that we are creating a new object of event that we created, the class that we created here. And we are getting our data from the cursor. So the cursor has built-in functions like these, right? We have get string, get int, and so on. So if you remember, while we created our database, okay, we have the code here. Only our title was varchar, that is the string type. Everything else, day, month, year, it was all integers. So which is why we are doing a cursor.getString for column index 0. So we access all columns from their column index. So since title was the first one, for title we have to do 1. And then we do get int for 1, 1 for day, 2 for month, 3 for year, and so on. So we get all of these and we pass this data to the constructor of our event. So if you remember our event class, so this is the data that we are passing to our event and it will create this object. And after our object is created, we just have to pass it to our events list dataset. That is the one that we created here. So it is just like appending it to an array. So that is all for recycler view. I'll run this app and like show you what happens. So I know recycler view might be a little confusing at first because honestly it's a little bit complex. And since we were running short on time, I kind of took it a little fast. So it is totally fine. If you have any doubts, you can ask me right now. or if you have to go to your lectures, you can ask us on the group and we'd be happy to clear them out. So yeah, my app has been installed, and now if I click on 10, if you remember, we had inserted this Android Workshop event in our database when I first showed you how insertion works. So that loads up in our recycler view here, and you can just insert more events as well. I'll just click on another event. Let's say a meetup. Date is today again, and the time is time is 5:30 p.m. Click on OK and click on save. So that has been inserted to the database, and if you click on 10 again, it will show up below. So this is recycler view at play here, because we have two events. Those two events are there in our events list, array list here, and we are assigning them to our adapter, and that adapter is replicating this UI layout that we created. So this is our events list layout, right? You can see title, date, and time. So that UI layout is being replicated as many times. I mean, whatever events we have, whatever number of events, those many times it is being replicated. So yes, this is it for the recycler view. So do ask us if you have any question.
Also, guys, I understand that some of you might feel that it was a bit fast in the later stage, but as you guys have a lecture at 11 o'clock, we had to cover the portion. We will be uploading this video on YouTube, so if you feel it was a bit fast, then you can rewatch it, the last part. So it would be uploaded by 2 o'clock.
Yep.
And we will be sharing the link. Yeah.
Yep. And even if you don't understand because I was covering it fast, feel free to ask any questions. I remember when I had to code recycler view myself for the first time when we were developing Android application, that was like very complex. And even by watching like tutorials on YouTube or looking at documentation on Google's website, it was difficult to like get to know what is exactly happening, what all these functions are doing. So we totally understand it. If you have questions, feel free to ask them on the group. And I'm sure like, many of you might have questions. So if you ask them on the group, others can benefit from those as well. Cool. So thank you for joining. Vinod, do you have anything to add?
No, I think they should attend the lectures now.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Adesh. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining. See you guys tomorrow.